Welcome back to the Vermont House Appropriations Committee. It is Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. It is a couple minutes after 1:30, and we have with us the Chair of House Human Services. We've asked for their participation because part of the VAA is very extensive, and we're grateful for your help walking us through the letter. Do we have your letter?
You have it.
Do we have it, Erin? Yes. Okay, I don't.
I mean, your email has it.
Okay. So does the rest of the committees have it?
Not yet.
All right, Erin.
That's perfect.
Post it
Sorry.
and bring it up so we're ready.
Kidding. Thank you, Tiff.
Oh, it's not posted.
Oh, it's.
Oh,
Posted up.
good for a chuckle.
this is our temporary location, and we arrived here an hour and a half before we went live. We discovered that none of the outlets on the outside wall will function. I'm pretty sure our crew will be ready, and I keep saying this, but we'll introduce the Colbert in 20 minutes.
Oh, here's none here. You're the definition of making it work.
Well, I've got an incredible team, and they're hang with me right now. Oh, Did it come from you?
It came from my committee assistant, Lori Morse.
Yeah.
Is it posted on your website? Maybe we can find it there.
And we don't have a printer in this world.
I can give you my version that says, just approve everything.
There you go.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Erin, you don't have it, right?
I do not.
What's her name?
Is it posted on your committee webpage?
It is posted on the House Human Services Committee webpage.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm
you
gonna
can find
email
it
this
there
to
as
Erin.
well, today's date.
Oh, so it's on your committee webpage?
It is. It is also sent to your committee chair, but it might be easier and faster to find it on our committee's webpage.
Yeah, well, I send this to.
State diaper bank proposal.
Oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know that one.
Here we go.
So Erin, I just sent it
Human
to you.
Services, is it? Yeah, Human Services Committee.
Oh, here it is.
It's under Katie McLean.
Remind me when I-
No, it's on.
I sent it.
Recheck first.
Is it today?
Yeah.
Yes. Under today.
There's so many of these things.
How long do we have until that you were willing?
As long as you need me for, Madam Chair.
We'll try our best because we know you're busy.
It's okay. It's okay. Our committee is functioning under the capable direction of my vice chair.
His mentorship didn't last long.
Is he throwing you under the bus?
It is.
He's not gonna be able to find things anymore.
He's already surpassed the student has already surpassed. the teacher.
Oh, I've taken the pebble from his hand.
Madam Chair, how would you like me to proceed?
I'm gonna wait for you to, are you guys, you got it? Anybody? I don't wanna get,
21.
all right. For the record, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. For the record, I am Representative Teresa Wood, Chair of the House Human Services Committee, and thank you for having me in your beautiful committee room this afternoon with a lovely view of downtown Montpelier. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here to review the House Human Services budget adjustment recommendations for fiscal year 23. We have a number of adjustments, as you might expect. The first thing that I want to do is if we in general agreed with the governor, you will find us not making necessarily very specific recommendations around that. However, of course, there's always exceptions, and you will see the exceptions. The language sections, I want to just particularly call out. I want to particularly call out the refugee resettlement investment for the employment program. We learned that it's not necessarily like a brand new program. It's something that they are doing and is to expand that. And that was contained in the language in particular. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to give you page numbers because what you have is probably a little bit different than what I have. So I just wanted to mention that, as well as the CARES Housing Voucher Program. We support that. We didn't specifically address that in our memo. We do address housing in our memo in other areas, but I just wanted to call those particularly. I think those were the only two things that I wanted to call out in particular. So let me move to the memo. We organize this by department. We comment on the Department for Children and Families, the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living, and the Vermont Health Department. And for DCF, we break it down into their major divisions and units of government so that hopefully it's easy to follow. And we also indicate the B number on our memo, so you can find it corresponding on your spreadsheet if you're looking for it. I do seek to be overachiever. So under the Reach Up program, this is something that is in the governor's recommend, but we really do feel we needed to make a comment here. Frankly, at the end of last fiscal year, or during budget testimony last fiscal year, we encouraged the department because we knew that there was going to be an uptick in caseload. The department's own reports by outside consultants indicated that, and they did not feel that they wanted to include that in their 23 budget request, and said that they would be here in budget adjustment, and lo and behold, they are here in budget adjustment with a make. Yes, I'm sorry, I see that question or a comment or something. Yes, Representative Harrison.
Do you have any idea why there's an uptick in caseload? Given that, we still have extraordinarily low unemployment and more jobs than people to fill.
That is something that members of our committee are looking into in terms of looking at the FY24 budget, which we'll be able to report better for you on that. At the estimates that the department's consultant used take into consideration a variety of factors, including the economy, including all the things really that you just spoke of, Representative Harrison. I don't have a copy of their report right here. It is on our committee's webpage from last year. I can certainly find that and forward a link for you to that report that shows what the estimates are based on. And what we're seeing is that those estimates held true in fiscal year 23, and that they are experiencing a caseload and therefore asking for this adjustment.
So you're thinking they just under budgeted this year?
They did under budget this year. We pointed that out to them. They failed to follow their own recommendations from their consultant, and we pointed that out, and they said, well, we'll deal with it in budget adjustment, and that's why we're here. They did under budget. In my opinion, Representative Harrison, it was under budgeted, yes.
Okay, no, thank you.
And I'm sure it's not a simple as looking at unemployment or workforce shortages.
No.
It seems to me contrary, the trend seems contrary than what I would be expecting in a strong job economy.
And oftentimes, the Reach Up caseload is a prelude to the future economic trends in the state. So I don't want to be a forebearer of potentially bad news, but I'm just letting you know that that's.
Is the bucket half full or?
This is, well, Right now, this is about 3,500 families, 3,480 families. And I made a note to find the report that we received last year, and I'll send you a link to that, Representative Harrison.
Thank you.
The General Assistance Emergency Housing, B321. This is no shortage of information and advocacy around homelessness here in the state, and we continue with that from our committee. We agree with everyone who speaks to the inability of the hotel and motel program to be a long-term solution to our homelessness problem. However, we do have a March 15th, 2023 termination date coming for the existing transitional assistance housing program. And we are looking to not have three particular categories of individuals be impacted by that change. And so we are recommending what essentially right now would be, in your terms, one-time dollars to extend assistance to those individuals, those households who have an individual who is 60 years of age or older, those households who have a person with a disability, and those households who have children 18 years of age and younger. The number of households that means, so families with children, there are 357 households. Those with someone with an older Vermonter is 273 households, and those with a person who's living with a disability is 348 households. And you can see at the top of page 2, we give you suggested language from Legislative Council that would enable those individuals to remain housed until the end of this fiscal year. Hoping that we are able to somehow during the 24 budget process work with the department advocates, those individuals with experience, and to try to come up with something that is more sustainable. I can tell you that this is not the full amount that advocates were requesting. We prioritized those three populations in our committee. So we are recommending almost $13.5 million, $13,424,710 to ensure that those three populations that I spoke of would be served through the General Assistance Housing Program. So they would transition from the program that's ending in March to the General Assistance Program, which is an ongoing program.
Representative Shai.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is really helpful, and I really love having all those numbers as a numbers person. So you're talking about 978 households that are impacted. And how do you arrive at the 13.4 million? Is there some formulas or like 5,000 a night or I don't know how do you figure that out?
We actually requested the data from the department.
Okay.
So these are figures provided by the Department for Children and Families.
Okay. And then the 2 million.
I haven't gotten to that one yet, but.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
I'm about to.
Okay. You mentioned it, but you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
Okay.
The additional 2 million is, right now there are a number of coordinated care teams. I think you've heard of them. They're pulling together people from home health agencies, from various other agencies within the state government, as well as some of our community providers. And they are attempting really to help with some of these complex cases that are out there who require additional care coordination because folks in the motel and hotel program they don't generally receive care coordination. So this is people who need help with healthcare, people who need help accessing supportive services, and obviously trying to find permanent housing as well. And a lot of this, you'll note that we indicated that's for hiring and or retaining coordinated care teams. So we are providing some feedback that most of this is being done right now by individuals who have some connection to either a current private provider and or DCF itself. And the additional resources are needed in order to be able to provide that complex care coordination for those individuals who will hopefully, if you recommend approval of this, be maintaining in the hotel motel program through the end of the fiscal year. Representative Shai, did you have a question now? Okay.
That explained it, thank you.
Representative Harrison.
So just quickly, you indicated this wasn't what the advocates were asking. Would you mind saying what they were asking for?
For this aspect of it, the one that we have 13.4 million,
Yeah.
they were asking for roughly 21 million.
Okay, and additionally, you said you got this number doing some projections from DCF.
Yes.
Does DCF support this addition? Because I don't think it was in their.
No, this is a committee recommendation.
Yeah, no, I get that.
They support the governor's budget adjustment request.
So they don't like the additional money then?
I'm not going to put words in their mouth. They tell me they support the governor's budget adjustment request.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so that's it for the Economic Services Division. Anybody, we all set on that? Okay. Moving on to Child Development Division, B318, the Child Care Workforce. So you may recall, well, some of you may recall, a few of you may recall, we allocated $7 million in last year's budget for retention, essentially retention bonuses to go out to the child care workforce. The Department for Children and Families has had a difficult time getting that money on the street. There are roughly $2 million of it has gone out, and we're, now closing in on the 7th month of the fiscal year. We investigated whether there would be the possibility of granting the remaining balance of those funds to a private entity, organization, in order to be able to maybe get those funds out to the child care workforce and providers in a more expeditious fashion. We were told by the department that that really would not reduce the requirements for any of the grant agreements. And so while we thought that that might be a potential solution, they tell us that because of their grant restrictions, that those all would need to be followed even by a third party. We remain troubled by this. I'll be honest. This is impacting the child care workforce, and it is what some providers refer to as a fairly onerous process to receive these funds. And I will point out that when the program initially launched this summer, the Department for Children and Families was requiring childcare providers to expend the funds first and then get reimbursed for them. Yeah, of course, there was a significant outcry about that. These are not programs that operate on a large margin. And so they had an inability to offer those and then be reimbursed for them. So they did rethink that. However, we are still faced with significant delays in getting this money out the door. And I know that the department is working on this. They continue to work on it. We've asked if we can have assurances that all the money will be, make its way to the intended recipients. We can't get any guarantee about that. I'm just putting that out there. So
You don't have any language, or you don't have a.
the only thing that we felt that we could really do in this regard is part of with the issues that some providers have told us is that they just literally don't have the capacity to sit down, look at the requirements, fill out the application, do the interface back and forth with the department, get the grant agreement signed, and move on from there. And so we are suggesting that with some of the money that's already been appropriated, that there's enabling language that allows the department to issue a contract to a private partner that will assist childcare providers in filling out the applications and getting them into DCF. DCF does not have the staff to be able to do that themselves.
Sounds very familiar to the rural approach. Representative Shaw?
Is there a reason it's so hard to get this money? I mean, you said the application process, does it have to be that hard? Could they revise it and make it easier? There's some federal or other rules that make it.
I'm trying to remember if this ended up being federal money or state money. I'm not sure if, it is general fund.
Do you have any input?
For the childcare retention?
Yes.
It's general fund dollars.
Yeah. So they could set their own, they could set the rules.
Yeah.
We've been unable to impact that, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you.
So it's safe to say the rules have
There's,
have already predicted that it's in the way, or not predicted, has demonstrated that they're in the way of getting it.
yes, yes. As well as the capacity of childcare providers to apply for the funding. So the fact that it's state general fund, gives us more latitude and flexibility, that I'm just going to say across AHS, we're hearing more and more about contracting issues. I'm just going to put that out there, not only in DCF, but DCF has a lot of contracts and grants out. So I'm not really sure what has happened in the grants and contracts administration world in the Agency of Human Services, but I have heard multiple complaints about that process and the difficulty of that process. And so this is emblematic of what I've heard from other providers, not in the childcare world.
Okay.
Ma'am, could I ask a question on that?
Representative Bloomley's first and then.
I'm okay. I got my answer. Thank you.
Okay, so when you're talking about this area, this is in the Human Services Agency that works with the grants and the assistance and the funds. And you're saying, if I'm getting this right, you're saying that they're having a hard time getting applicants to get the grants in, or having a hard time processing the grants, or is it both?
I don't know how the workflow within the Agency of Human Services, we didn't speak to contracts or grants managers.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to whether or not they're feeling overburdened by the workload. I can't speak to that, Representative Dickinson, but I can speak to the fact that the community members, the childcare providers, have found it difficult to apply for these funds in many cases. And so that's why we're recommending using a small portion. We don't say a specific amount. If you wanted to put a specific amount, you could, but we're suggesting that a portion of that $7 million be allocated to assist childcare providers to actually apply for those funds.
Right. But you see this in more than just childcare.
I am seeing this in multiple areas.
Okay.
Yes. The grants and contracts management. I don't really know what's happened, but it's like somebody flipped a switch and something had become extremely difficult.
When they weren't before.
They've become more difficult. I mean, the state's contract and grant process has always been, a process. It's public funds we're dealing with. So I don't want to get too off track. I just need to make
We have a
that.
little bit of a line.
Yeah.
So Representative Shaw and then Representative Holcomb.
So because it's general fund, they aren't restricted by, and they can, it sounds like, and I believe it was our intent, having been on this committee last year when we created this, to make it as easy as we could to get the money out the door to the people who needed the money. And what I'm hearing is that the agency has created something that has made it much harder than anyone anticipated to get the money, and that's a large reason that the money is out. And I just find it a shame that we have to spend some of the money that we were going to give to the people who need it to hire a contractor to help them fill out the form so they can get the money. I mean, I appreciate that you're trying to help them out, but it just
I don't disagree with you, Representative Shaw.
Thank you. I'm done.
Representative Holcomb.
did you have a chance to respond? I mean, you weren't able to answer the committee, but one of the things that they said is that due to a liquidation timeline for the monies, they were unable to enforce the work requirement. So part of it, I think, is you're trying to also loosen the language.
Nope, that's not with regard to this.
Okay,
We will address that shortly.
okay.
Good?
I wasn't sure how long the line was. You said there was a line. I wasn't sure how long it was. Okay. Okay, that was the first part of that. So, any assistance that the Appropriations Committee can provide to loosening up that contracting requirement, we are all set to be on board with that. The next section are funds that were as a result of the H-171, which was a childcare bill, and set up student loan repayment assistance and scholarship programs. And you may recall that there was some specific language with regard to the qualifications, the timelines, and all of that. So I'm happy to report that one of the programs has been fully utilized and actually has a waiting list, and that's the TEACH program, which I think that has something to do also with the fact that it was an existing program. So people knew about it, they were familiar with it, and that program was ready and, they were on their way. So they already existed. It has been well utilized. In terms of the student loan repayment assistance, we are, so I want to say $2.7 million was allocated to that. Only $256,117.18. I just want you to know, we do get detailed. Only $256,817 has been spent to date. So we are suggesting, you will see on page 3 of our memo, we are suggesting some changes that broaden eligibility a bit to be able to utilize more funds and essentially allow the department more flexibility in providing payments to the child care workforce. So the first you'll see halfway down the page in paragraph 2B, and that is looking at the annual salary of not more than $60,000 from $50,000, an increase of $10,000, looking to also impact child care directors. And then in C, 2C, you will see that the language that says within the preceding 5 years has been struck. So essentially what we're saying is if you are still paying off student loans and you're in the child care workforce, the fact that it's 6 or 7 years old really is inconsequential. I mean, we really feel like you should be able to receive assistance. We want to keep you in the child care workforce. And so we are suggesting removing the preceding 5 years requirement. And these, by the way, for people who might be unfamiliar with this language, this is language that the House Human Services Committee had put in the bill and was then adopted by the House and ultimately the Senate and the body. And so we are recommending essentially changes to our own language.
Question, I think. Representative Page?
Yes, I have a question regarding the federal scholarship program that we've heard so much about. Mm-hmm. Does that have any effect upon what you're trying to do here as well?
Yes, of course. I mean, that came about after our bill was passed, and certainly people are eligible for, the people who are eligible and have applied for that might not think about applying for this, but in effect, they could be eligible for both. And then we have added an additional category under C2. And this connects, one, it adds master's degree, and it connects to the Early Childhood Career Ladder Certificate program through Northern Lights at the community college. And so again, we are looking at the additional education requirements and the professionalization of the field and making additional education available to people in the field and broadening what we are intending to spend this 2.7 million on. So this is not requesting any additional funds, unlike the housing. This is just saying, let's take what we've already appropriated and change the language a bit to enable what we've appropriated to be used.
And that appropriation was all general fund reform?
That's something you have to speak with JFO about. I think there was some federal funds that got mixed up in that.
That's the 2.7, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's-
Okay.
So are we on page 4 now?
Yes, we moved to page 4. Oh, yeah, there was one more thing. So what we were saying is if this D is an addition, that if you would have otherwise qualified when we make these changes, then you can receive, so if you applied and you didn't qualify because the program was more narrow, now that we're recommending widening it up, you are eligible for a payment if you had met the eligibility requirements within the last 12 months.
So they can either reapply or, Yeah.
Hopefully they won't have to reapply. Hopefully they have the applications and they can just send them the money. But this is just making it clear that we're essentially saying
They're not
retroactive
blocked
to 12 months, you get to,
they're not blocked out.
they're not blocked out. That's it, except for you will be seeing a mention in the Family Services Division. The Child Care Financial Assistance Program was underspent by $5 million that is now being transferred to the Family Services Division. But I will address that momentarily. So, all set to move on from that? Okay, it looks like we are. All right, Children's Integrated Services. Last year, this is one of the areas that has had a rate study over the past few years, and we have made incremental progress to moving the per member per month rate up. This is a package of services for children with intensive needs, very young children with intensive needs, and this is we had received mixed reports, frankly, about whether or not the department had instituted the 650 per member per month, which is what we had intended. We verified that in fact they have, and however, there is also an increased caseload in this line. Now, the department is accommodating that increased caseload by transferring funds within the department, so there's no request for new funds. But this statement is just to merely ensure that they do not pay for the new individuals, the new caseload folks, at a reduced per member per month. We want to make sure that that 650 per member per month is paid for all recipients.
I'm calling myself.
Madam Chair.
We had a request, or at least heard a request in our budget around this. Does the number 265, does this ring a bell? 260.
I don't know what you heard in your public hearing. This is a service that's required to be provided for eligible children, and it's essential. It's very early. It's part C.
So if you bear with me for a minute, we'll find it here. I just want to make sure that we're talking the same.
Yes, I don't. If you could elaborate on the question that you heard, I may be able to answer that.
Yeah, 265,000 for CIS, hire 1,575 families per month. Is that maybe the new caseload?
We received assurances that that there is caseload growth, that they are accommodating the caseload growth by transferring from unused funds in other areas, and that we are wanting to make sure that the $650 per member per month that they did increase the rates for are applied to all individuals. So I think that there has been some concern on the part of community members that the new caseload people would get a lower rate. And there are sufficient funds within the DCF budget to accommodate this. So
it's not new. Well, who we heard from, just to give you a hint, was from the Winston Proudy Center in Brattleboro. And we were gonna have to, we didn't know if they were asking just for their part of the world or is it statewide? We haven't ferreted that out yet. So you're saying that right now, the 650, if it stays for everyone, is sufficient.
650, and they're covering all caseload.
Go ahead, Jim.
Is there any reason to think that the department would in fact reduce the rate for new people?
That's why you see-
Doing this?
Yeah, that's why we see a paragraph here, because we had received feedback that there was discussions about paying a lower per member per month rate for the new caseload.
So you want language in here that says that won't happen?
That is what we are hoping, yes.
Do we have that or do you want us?
We didn't come up with specific language, no. Okay, moving on to the Family Services Division. Okay. So essentially the savings that were achieved in the Child Development Division are being transferred to the Family Services Division. Family Services Division deals with foster care, deals with juvenile and justice-involved juveniles, deals with a whole host of things in supporting children and youth who are either away from their family temporarily or and sometimes permanently, and those youth who have some court involvement. And so it's probably not news to anyone that since Woodside is closed, there has been a patchwork of trying to figure out how to appropriately refer to it. I'm just gonna say a patchwork of things that have been cobbled together under great stress for Family Services Division staff and family services workers in particular, who have been doing yeoman's work covering some of these young people who are struggling significantly and, in some cases causing physical harm to family services workers. And so I just need to put that out there. We by no stretch have a system that is accommodating this need right now. You have all read in the news about the Newberry facility, and that is in the Supreme Court right now. So we are not expecting any judgment on that for, up to a year. And the department has submitted a plan, which you can find on our website, that essentially looks at a sort of a 4-tiered approach to these juveniles that need extra assistance. What they are proposing to use these funds for are for a 8-bed pod-like. We prefer to call them what's that, small homes, what do you call those?
Tiny homes.
We prefer to call them tiny homes as opposed to pods. Because they are gonna be home for these youth for a period of time. And pods just sounds, I don't know.
Even smaller.
So we have had significant discussion with the department about this. It would be inappropriate to say that our committee, supports this on any kind of long-term basis. However, we really honestly feel like we're caught between a rock and a hard place at this point in time, because we cannot, as a state, afford to do nothing. It's impacting those youth, it's impacting the state's workforce, impacting the families, the school systems. And so we cannot afford to do nothing. Is this the best solution? It is the best that people are able to come up with at this time. And it is a temporary, and I just want to call to folks' attention, temporary in this world means 4, 5, 6 years. We're not talking about temporary meaning 4, 5, 6 months. We we are supporting the governor's request in the BAA with conditions. He's looking to transfer 4.6 million for startup and construction costs of a secure residential stabilization facility. And it's called something else on your budget sheet. It is B 327, but it's called, I don't have it right here in front of me, called something slightly different. That's a different level of their, they have a different, and this is what they testified that this would serve. So right now the plan is to utilize part of the 60 some odd acres at the St. Albans Correctional Facility to house the pods. We have some misgivings about that. They want to use state-owned land. They have a community that is that they are working. That community is working with them, which is again one of the criteria, and it being temporary. We have. I've talked with Chair Emmons about this because this is essentially a capital expenditure, and she, you should obviously do your own checking on this, but we've had, a couple of discussions about that. She's aware of this request, and she's also received a copy of our recommendations. We are saying that we need additional, so we're approving it with conditions. We believe that we need more information around a longer term plan. There is no budget that's presented. I'm sure in 24 budget, we will see operating costs associated with this and further development costs. But, we were essentially just given a number, and without any backup information. And while we don't want to hold up the process from moving along because it does need to move along, you'll see in our narrative that we really feel that we need more information about what your plans are for location for a permanent facility, and how long you think that might take, and the timeline and budget as well as design for this temporary facility. And we would like to see that by the end of March because one, we don't want this to be held up, but we also, we don't want to make a mistake, and so we want to deal with the issue, but we feel like we need to do our due diligence in terms of seeing more detail than what has been provided to us. So we wanted to move the process along, but say we need more information.
I've got Representative Scheid, Representative Harrison, Representative Dickinson.
Thank you for this. Two questions. If this were to get approved, how long would it take to be operational before it's actually operational? And how many people could it serve at one time?
They said that this is still requiring a year lead time and 8.
Okay, thank you.
There's quite a long lead time on construction stuff, as you know. Yeah.
That could be a lot worse, so that's, yeah.
Well, that's our estimate.
Yes, we're not talking.
And I will say that the plan right now is to contract this service.
The actual service.
Yes, the staffing of it is to contract. So we would address that, I'm presuming, in the FY24 budget, but they did tell us that their intention is to do that.
Representative Harrison and Representative Dickinson. Representative Page, did I miss you? Okay, good.
Okay, I apologize if you already told us this, but I'm trying to get my arms around this. If we're doing 8 tiny homes or pods, whatever you want to call them, in 4.6 million, I want to get in the housing business pretty bad. I mean, we're talking 800,000 a piece. Whatever, 600.
Well, no, remember there's site work that needs to be done. There is no slab of concrete out there that says, okay, come put your pod on me. So And the thing that you will see in our description is that this also, at the top of page 5, this is also for renovations required in the, I'm not sure if you heard testimony about the Wyndham County Sheriff's Program. Well, it's not the Sheriff's Program, Wyndham County program that the Sheriff's Office is assisting DCF with. That's 2 beds down there. There's 3 beds down there, but there's 1 in the upper floor and 2 in the lower floor. The lower floor is not yet complete. It requires renovations in order to be occupiable, I guess if that's a word. And so it would include what the work that needs to be done there.
Yeah, no, I'm not, we need to do something
Yeah.
because we keep kicking the can because we can't.
Yeah, I understand.
But I know, just the back of the envelope math seems like, God, it's awful
Well,
expensive.
As you can see, this is why we are asking for
Yeah,
additional
no,
information.
yeah.
We feel like the process needs to move along, but we feel like that we want more detail, frankly, about, you know, what the costs are for, you know, how much is for site preparation, how much is for the actual pods themselves, how much is going to the design. There's some engineering work that needs to be done at the Wyndham County Sheriff's location.
Right.
You know, how much money is allocated to that? You know, so
Okay, thank you.
we will hopefully have more information if you agree with putting such a deadline in here.
Thank you. Passing interest to me,
Oh,
obviously.
really?
As I'm sure you're aware. Now, I spoke to the select board, I guess, that was presented to them last week or maybe the week before. And they have not approved it. They have sent it off to zoning and are thinking about it. So I'm not sure where that's going to end up. But the point is that this is a correctional center. And I'm sure you understand that Woodside was at once intentionally, and may still be, a therapeutic medical facility that would deal with counseling and helping these young people who are troubled to. It was never intended to be a correctional center for youth. In fact, one of the reasons the federal government finally took away the money for Woodside is because it sure did look like a prison. They treated it like a prison. They destroyed it. It was a mess, hot mess, and closed it down. So here you're placing this facility on a correctional center where they have, it's basically our maximum security facility.
So, Representative, these are all the same conversations that we have had in our committee over the last 2 days. And it is one of the things that Representative Harrison might find some humor in this, that makes this less costly than it would be, is that they want to utilize state-owned property. And yes, are there other locations for state-owned property? They have not made an absolute final decision about that. They, as you said, are in discussions with the town officials about it. The other state-owned properties that they have considered have not risen to the top of their recommendations. It is, you know, we were very clear that, you know, what the services are for these youth are to try to enable them to, okay, take a moment, take a breather, realize you don't have to have a life like you have right now, you know, and to get the support that they need in order to be able to change things for themselves and for their future. And I think that I might even use the statement that we don't want them looking out their window and seeing barbed wire. And it's a concern for us. And it is why on paper, you know, we're going on record that saying that we will not agree to a permanent facility being located on the same grounds as a correctional facility. I did receive information that is, that some people agree with that in the administration and others do not. You might recall, the people who have been here for a while, about 5 years ago, the administration presented a plan to have a campus at the site of the St. Albans, which I understand is really in Swanton. Is that correct?
No, it's really in the town, but the address is Swanton.
Oh, okay. Somebody told me it was really in Swanton. So I was like, well, I want to give a town its due, but okay. So there was a proposal by the administration to put the women's facility there, to expand whatever and replace or rehabilitate men's facilities, and to put the replacement for Woodside on that. And as a body, we said no to that. We have expressed our concern that this is, we don't want this to be viewed as our tacit approval of an incremental approach to that ultimate plan.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
We've been very clear about that in Human Services. We don't see another alternative right at this point in time. We are, a member of my committee and a member of Representative Emmons' committee are going to do a site visit to visually see where this location is, the proximity to the current buildings that are there, and to have the opportunity to have more dialogue and details about exactly what the plan is. But I was pretty sure that your committee did not want us to wait on getting you our recommendations for the BAA to get all of that done. So we wholeheartedly concur, Representative Dickinson, with what you just said. This is not a place for any kind of permanent facility. And frankly, it will have an impact on those who travel through there in the next period of time if we end up, in the end agreeing to that plan. We have concerns about it as well.
Yeah, well, one comment and then another question. Temporary can sometimes mean a whole lot more than 4 to 6 years. I think we've been in Middlesex 10, 12 years, 10, 11 years. And I just want to say that I would like more information on what the plan is. Is there going to be outdoor access for these young people? And how is that going to work with the correctional? I mean, that could be, not that they would escape so much as that they would be then very close and be able to be very close to the actual correctional center in a way that maybe neither you nor anybody else wants.
Right, and that's why I said we want to do an actual site visit, have eyes onto it, and carefully deliberate about this. And we want to learn from, previous actions.
Thank you.
I completely concur with, and I'm sympathetic with your desire for more information about this interim solution and a more long-term solution. I guess I have a technical issue. We're talking about possible language. Okay, so if the language asks for a report by March 31st, but the bill doesn't become effective until April or whenever.
Well, we had April, but then we said, oh no, we really want it sooner.
I know, I'm just wondering how mechanically, I'm very sympathetic with this. How do we do this mechanically so it has some pull? I mean, if this could wait until the budget, then they could put in the bill that it's.
That will be July.
Right, yeah, so it can't wait. So if we condition the BAA, how does it work?
So much like you're thinking about other places where great idea, go forth and develop, called putting a fence around that money.
Yeah.
We're not appropriating it just yet, but we're saying we're reserving it for this process.
So it's
Conditional.
So in other words, they can't get the money until they comply with the.
We're not right. We're not authorizing the use. The intent of this is that we're not authorizing the use of that money until they comply with the plan.
Thank you.
Kind of what we did with the PSATs and the dispatch, regional dispatching. Great idea, not ready yet.
And if they know this is in the budget with that date, they can start working on this now.
They are already working on this.
They know this is a priority.
They reported to the Joint Justice Oversight Committee in December with sort of a sketch of the plan. And so they are working with the Department of Buildings and General Services, and they have got estimates for the pods and the like. And I think it is, working with the appropriate officials in a receiving town. They're trying to work in a collaborative fashion. And, I really feel our role is to try to make sure that we mean temporary, and that this is a transition to something that is more permanent, and that, I guess a future legislature could change our decision, but we're not interested in this on a correctional facility property for extended period of time.
So Representative Mahali, let me maybe try this on for size. All right, so we've got the BAA. Just so you know, doesn't have to stay in BAA. Let's just say in March that, there's wonderful things that happen between now and then, and that there's some sort of new thing. You could literally lift it up and put it in the big bill.
Because the BA comes back from the Senate, we'll have
Right.
time. Right.
We'll come back, they'll have made changes. Everything's gonna be percolating. Everything's alive all the time, right? Nothing's ever done until the governor signs it.
Right. And conversely, if they don't comply, the money just might disappear from the final bill.
Yes.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
And just to be clear, it's not an additional appropriation, unlike our housing, it's a transfer from one of their
Right.
unspent lines.
So we don't have to break this money in as new money. There, we're just saying, your ideas, we're just gonna.
Yeah, I really, to be fair, I really do see them working with us on this, okay? And they know that, we're concerned about the current status. It's no news to anybody, but Acting Commissioner Chen will be gone before this report is due. And so, I'm hopeful that we can work even sooner. We will continue to be working with the department, even as this BAA is moving through the process. So it's not like we're going to wait for some final language and say, oh, now we'll get to work. We will be continuing to work on that, Representative Mahoney.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Madam Chair, I wonder if have they looked at any other sites? State property?
Yes, the Department of Buildings and General Services said they had looked at 3 to 4 sites. They did not elaborate on which ones they were, but it's fairly short list. We own property in Middlesex, we own property in Virgins, we own property in Windsor, we own property in St. Albans. So I suspect.
That they rule those out for some reason, which is what?
Those would be questions that we would ask, more of the whys, yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Good.
All right, we're gonna move on now to the foster care system. Oh, no, Lund, sorry, I don't want to skip over Lund. Okay, so,
Oh, good, because we talked about this earlier today.
oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
You're gonna clear us up on that.
I have no idea if I'm going to clear you up, but we had some confusion in our committee yesterday about 1.1 and 1.2. Oh, did you have that same discussion? Oh, okay. Well, good. Well, they are 2 different amounts. Okay, so 1.1 is in the governor's recommended BAA. Okay, that is for increased caseload, as we understand it, increased caseload related to reach up eligible families. This that was 1.1. This 1.2 million is essentially, and again, it's one-time funds to get them through the end of this fiscal year. And I want to back up just for a second. I know that people are familiar with the Lund Center, but I just want to, place an asterisk of importance next to the services that they provide for moms mostly, who have substance use issues and are also trying to learn how to parent their children. When you're dealing with substance use, that's, a major thing in and of itself, and trying to do that in a process or in a place where, there are challenges all around you. And so then add to that being a new parent or being an expectant parent. And so I just want to sort of put a human face on the types of services that they provide. And to also note for you that 3 to 4 years ago, DCF eliminated one portion of the program that used to be funded for the Lund Center. So if you think about recovery in sort of a step process, our committee took a site visit to the Jenna's Promise up in Johnson recently, and they have essentially a 3-step process where they move people through from, where they first come in directly from a short-term detox kind of situation into there, and they move them through stages to ultimately independent living with supports. And the department eliminated step 2. And so the sort of more transitional and supports for independent living are not provided anymore through the Lund Center. And so we need this asset. This is part of our battle against substance use, and it's part of our battle to try to have these children have a different kind of life than, maybe that they are born into. And so, all right, that was just my commercial about the importance of the Lund Center.
So the Lund Center is not just one place.
No, it is not. So you saw, I think, in the governor's language about PNMI, private non-medical institutions, rate increases going into effect for PNMI. So the Lund Center is impacted by that in a positive way. So they will receive increases, when the PNMI increases, if that goes through. Okay, this is the hold them until that happens. This is to close the gap until PNMI happens. And that's it. I don't need to say anymore. I don't need to talk anymore.
And when you say close the gap until the 1.1, that's total.
No, the 1.2 that we're recommending here
Is the close the gap.
That's the close the gap. And this is not in the governor's recommended budget. Okay.
And the 1.1 is, which is what's thrown us from.
Right, yeah. We got confused by that too, and we got it cleared up.
Did we get it? Do we don't have it? Yeah, that's where we were.
They're two separate things.
Thank you. We got Representative here.
So if I'm reading the notes here, this is to
Serve an additional 8 to 12
individuals.
They will be able to increase their capacity with staffing it up.
for the rest of this fiscal year.
And then with the PNMI increase going into effect, yes, they would be able to have a higher level of occupancy.
Can they even hire the staff to take care of those 8 to 12?
Or do they need to hire staff to take care of them?
Yes, this will be part of the plan to increase occupancy. They need to hire in additional staff, yes.
Okay,
So that begs my question, especially in anything related to healthcare and
mental health, can they
hire the staff? I'm not talking about the money.
I understand. They believe that they can.
okay,
It's a very, a mission-driven organization, and there are people passionate about trying to help, young moms with substance use. So they believe that will be possible with this additional funds, and that will be supported ongoing with the PNMI.
I'm just,
I
raising the
understand, yeah.
question because it's challenging.
Yeah, I agree. I understand. Okay, now moving on to foster care. Foster care is, we hear all about all of the other residential programs, okay? We hear a lot about justice-involved youth, and okay, those are really small portion of the kids that we support in the state who are not either temporarily or sometimes permanently with their families. The foster care system is really the foundation upon which all of that other stuff exists. And foster parents have not received sufficient support, in our opinion, during the pandemic. They were given a one-time payment as part of, I don't remember if it was, which version of the COVID money it was. I don't remember if it was ARPA or whatever the previous versions were now. I can't even remember their names. Yeah. So they were given a one-time payment, and there is a calculation that is involved with giving them sometimes a small increase. And they have received a 5% increase in the rates paid. And I know you're going to ask me how much is that, and I don't have that off the top of my head, but I will get that. I should have had that. So we are recommending to support this group of individuals, and this is something in the way that it is worded is important. One-time payment to foster care providers who have who are active as of January 1. I mean, we picked January 1 just because it was the beginning of the year. It wasn't there's nothing special about it other than it's New Year's Day. And right now, there are currently 886 children currently in foster care. You'd be surprised how difficult it was for us to get a number of children in foster care.
I have heard about that, yeah.
So
Looking for, the reason there's no number there is because it's not in the budget.
there is a number. We're recommending approximately $433,000.
No, I'm not in the governor's recommendation.
It is not. This is an addition. This is not.
You won't see a B number next to it.
There is not a B number, right? When there's no B number, that means that this is an addition by the Human Services Committee in terms of our recommendation.
So 433,000.
Yeah, that's our best estimate.
Representative Shaw.
So I appreciate that this system has been highly stressed. What do you expect to be the result of a $500 payment to the family?
What we expect to be the result of that is an acknowledgement by the state and by the system that we value what you have been doing, that we understand the stress that you've been under, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Not to mention all the increased costs because of inflation, and they house and feed and clothe the foster children.
And your payments haven't been going up, I assume.
Not commensurate with the level of inflation that we've had, no, for sure.
Representative.
Did we do other?
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, having worked on the other side, the state owes a huge debt of gratitude to the
Did we, what have we done the last couple of years to help foster parents over and above the regular rate? Did we do?
We did, that's what I was mentioning earlier. We've made one payment in a previous COVID relief money.
Okay.
And I'd have to go back and double check the amount. I want to say it was $300 or $400. It was a one-time payment like we're suggesting here. I'm pretty sure it wasn't $500. It was something less than that. I think we started at $500 and the department said, oh, well, it should be, yeah. Anyway, that sounded like you, Madam Chair.
Did the request come from your committee or did it come from families that were in the program now?
This request is from our committee. This is based upon our knowledge of the stress that is being handled by that. Yeah, no, I'm just telling you where it came from. It came from, we did not have, hordes of families coming forward and saying, this, but they don't really have a large voice, to be honest.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for wearing your masks so I can stay. That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I just, whatever.
Thank you.
I'm good.
This will become law, so to speak, sometime mid-year. Is there any value in recognizing the service of people who come on as foster care between January 1 and say June 30th? Both because they will be there and also it sort of helps the department with a kind of, it's not just a retroactive recognition, it's also a sort of a signing bonus. Would it help if it was June 30th instead of January 1?
This was based upon us being able to put together an estimate based upon the number of children in custody. So that number is going to fluctuate. So, I'm certain their committee would be certainly amenable to, flexible language.
But we wouldn't know the number then.
That's correct.
So they get the fiscal note
Yeah.
based on.
We try to provide as many specifics as we can when we're trying to make a recommendation.
We appreciate that.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna move on to Dale now, the Department of Disabilities and Independent Living. So, there's a number of things here. It looks like less than it is, to be honest. So in B 329, the department is requesting almost $1.1 million for one time. And this is really for fit up and changes that need to be made to help a long-term care skilled nursing facility or facilities. We were taking testimony on this prior to the governor's budget being released, so they were not at liberty to say how many this was going to be covering, but this essentially is going to start to address the backlog of people who are held up in hospitals because there's not the next level of care for them to be discharged to. So this is a one-time expenditure, and I think it's our committee thinks that it is really necessary, and so we support the governor's proposal here. Supports and services at home, SASH. Again, there, like I said, we didn't like just write down everything that we agreed with all the governor's stuff, but some of these things we did. Again, this is something that was in the governor's BAA, and we concur with that. In developmental disability services, B333, there are a couple of areas here that warrant further explanation, just so the committee understands what they're for. It calls out a specific organization, Upper Valley Services. Upper Valley Services is the designated agency for people with developmental disabilities. They cover Orange County, but they also have offices in Randolph, Bradford, and they have an office in Moortown, which, as you know, is in Washington County. They also run statewide crisis beds. The developmental disability system does its best to not utilize the Vermont Psychiatric Care Hospital to essentially provide the supports and services for people who are in crisis within its own system. Are they 100% successful? No, but they are generally very, very successful in doing that. What they are finding, given the acuity level of the people increasing, they really need access to additional crisis beds. And so this is providing some support to Upper Valley Services to access on a statewide level additional crisis beds for the system. So part of that is one time, the 400,000 is one time, and the 716 is ongoing, which you will see incorporated into the base budget as you look forward in 24.
And that's in the governor's recommend.
These are governor's recommend, yes.
So both that.
Okay. In the same area, $1.4 million for public safety. These are individuals who have public safety concerns who either age out of DCF custody or who are adjudicated by the courts to be incompetent to stand trial under Act 248. And these folks require intensive level of supports for both their own safety, but the community safety as well. And this will serve an additional 5 people. The department has not come forward actually in quite a number of years and asked for any additional caseload for this group or their general caseload. So, I mean, in budget adjustment, every year we see it in the regular budget, but not in budget adjustment. So there has been an uptick in this area, notably this year.
Representative Sean, thanks. So are the 5 people already identified?
Yes, these are people who are likely already receiving services,
Okay.
yes.
And then, do we have a sense of how many individuals are in the custody of the commissioner?
I can find that number out for you.
I'm just curious to know.
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I can tell you what it might have been 20 years ago, but that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Number of people who are officially in the custody under Act 248?
Yes.
Okay, so public safety, just to be clear, is a broader category. It includes people who have gone through the court process, and it also includes people who have aged out of the DCF system, and we're essentially preventing them from going through a court process. Okay, but I'll get the number of Act 248 people.
Great. Those of you who remember Sandy Haas, this will Representative Haas. That's something that was near and dear.
Okay, again, an unusual request for the BAA is for people who have experienced a brain injury. We have home and community-based services under global commitment for people who have experienced a brain injury. And again, they are experiencing an uptick in both the acuity level and the number of people who are needing services. And this would serve 7 people. Okay. Choices for care. Lots of discussion about choices for care. Lots of discussion about choices for care. So the department is required on an annual basis to submit a report to the legislature on the, especially, I guess what I would call the, sort of truing up the end of year, and what are there any funds remaining? How would they be invested? Where should they be invested? And there is specific language in the green books that is highlighted here at section 33 VSA section 7602. This language similar to this was in session law a couple of years back. We were successful in getting this in the green books, and we have ongoing questions. I'm struggling to find the right words on this. We have ongoing questions in this area. As you know, there have been extraordinary stresses placed on long-term care facilities throughout the state. Representative Page knows about the nursing home in his area that is closing shortly. We've had 10 other long-term care facilities close. And so the Medicaid rates that are paid are insufficient to sustain these businesses, frankly. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. However, the language around savings specifically targets savings to home and community-based services. Nursing facilities are not considered home and community-based services. They're institutional services. And so we have differences of opinion with the department about how that's interpreted. However, so there were some what they call extraordinary payments made to several nursing facilities, as well as some money invested in rate increases, additional rate increases, for instance, in the home and community-based side I think it was personal care and homemaker services. Mm-hmm. So there were investments made. It's all hinging on the determination of how you calculate savings and when that is done. And Representative Lamfer has been around long enough to know about this language, and I'm not sure.
Get it into green.
I know, and I'm not sure we quite have it right based upon this year's actions. So, however, the money has gone out the door. It was, there isn't, and we were not disputing the fact that we needed to make payments as necessary. And so we are concurring with further work to be done with the department on that language. That's why I said.
Oh, maybe in the big bill.
There may be some work on that. That's a future story to be told.
That would be Representative Dolan's.
Yes. And that just remind me to say how much we appreciated all of the collaboration between our committee members and your committee members. And it really helped, I think, for everybody to sort of be hearing the same things at the same time. And just wanted to extend my appreciation.
It was, I almost couldn't have a quorum because everybody was interested in what was going on in the other building. It was like-
But we like to keep you busy.
And we're,
All right, adult day providers. Again, you see no B number next to this because this is a committee recommendation. This is an ongoing.
I was just gonna say, you're okay with the choices for care piece?
Yes,
Now,
yeah, well, we said acceptable.
accept. Okay.
It's-
All right, I just want to make sure I mark it off.
Yes, we'll have further discussions with the department about that language and you may see us returning for,
Okay for now.
yeah, okay for now. Adult day providers, again, this is a recommendation from our committee. There's the ongoing saga of adult day services they provide a valuable resources to families who are supporting an older Vermonter at home and trying to keep them at home. They have struggled significantly during the pandemic, and this fiscal year is really no exception to that. And there is a report coming out February 15th that we hope will help address some recommendations about how to well, it's not exactly a rate study. We're really talking about the structure of payments, things like paying based upon attendance versus enrollment and the like. This is a population that has lots of medical appointments. They may not feel well during the day. They might not be there, but you're still providing a support to them. You still have to have the staff in order, for when they do come back and they're feeling well to be there. And yet if you're not there, you don't get paid. So,
Just imagine our education system if we only day to day.
Exactly.
We're there.
Right. That's a very good analogy, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm going to have to use that one. So that's what the February 15th report is supposed to do. So this is additional, again, it's one-time appropriation of $2.1 million to sustain the organizations through the end of the fiscal year. I do want to make a point that we have had 3 facilities close, 2 of the 3 facilities, and an additional 2 of 3 facilities that UVMMC ran that did not reopen. So, a total of 5. We've really reduced access to this service in the state, and it's a problem. It's a
How many
big
are
problem.
there total? 5.
5 total.
That closed.
Yes.
What is left now?
10.
10.
Yeah, 10. So our committee supports this, and we do recognize that, the one-time dollars are going to be drying up, and we need to find a way to sustain these services. And you're going to be hearing that throughout any feedback from our committee about Medicaid services. We are on a house of cards, and the bottom layer has already crumbled, and the other layers are crumbling. It's a crisis state. And speaking of crisis, nursing's, home-based nursing. The low utilization payment adjustment, LUPA, this is really also, I think you'll see if you haven't seen already in the healthcare committee, they're also supporting the home health. Again, this is not in the governor's budget recommendation. I believe, trying to remember, not mix it up, but I believe that they had been told previously that there would be an increase to get them closer to the Medicare LUPA rate, but it did not come through. And so they requested our assistance in this. They provided information at various different percentages. And at $2 million, that increases it up to 100% of Medicare LUPA. We have information that we can provide if you were interested in something down, but we thought.
Is that general fund or is that rolled up?
These are Medicaid. This is GC.
Okay.
And then one of our smallest recommendations has one of the longest one of the longest paragraphs, but moving on to the Department of Health. We have, we didn't really have any major changes in the Department of Health to the governors. We didn't have any, actually. This is a relatively minor one, but SAMHSA provided grants under their emergency grants to address mental health and substance use disorders during COVID-19. That was the sort of title of this grant project. And those funds end on May 31st. And the Department of Health has put funds out to local partners. And you can see in the first paragraph the kind of work that they have been doing. What we are requesting, and this would be probably general fund, we're requesting approximately $13,000 to fund the final month in fiscal year 23.
13,000.
Yeah, $12,810 to fund the final month of FY23. We want the opportunity to really consider whether or not we should be recommending this program continue on an ongoing basis, but we can't do that until the 24 budget process. And this would leave a 30-day period, or 31-day period without, it would cause an interruption in services if we decide to continue it. So if we decide not to continue it, there's nothing lost other than $12,810. But those services would have continued. So it gives us an opportunity to make a decision at a state level whether we want to continue those services or whether there would be any other federal grant monies to continue those services.
So that in 24, we don't have this month.
Right. And, I don't need to tell this committee that, our arsenal for substance use services needs as many tools in the toolbox as we can afford. And then our final was sort of a last minute addition. And again, this is something that might ordinarily be in the capital budget. However, due to timing related to a real estate transaction, Howard Center came forward to ask for assistance in securing funds so that they may be able to purchase 3 buildings located in Rutland. I found that interesting. The Howard Center runs a program in Rutland, but it's been a program for 20 years. This is a program that serves youth who have inappropriate sexual behaviors and has been very successful in serving those youth. The owner of the building has the buildings up for sale. They would require the program to move. They're not really interested in moving. It would disrupt everything. And the fund balance is at the designate. I asked about, ordinarily, this is unusual to see this. Ordinarily, you'd be taking out a loan, you'd be going through, and they said, our financial picture right now, we can't do that. We can't take on additional debt in order to continue a program that we've been running. And so this would actually end up resulting in $150,000 in lease savings. They would then have to be paying taxes and stuff, but so this is for the purchase of those 3 buildings in Rutland, and you can see the purchase of the buildings, $584,000, and then $368,000 for the capital needs in order to rehabilitate those buildings for use into the future. The program has a capacity to serve 20 youth at any given time. And these, I want to point out, these are the type of youth that unfortunately we are sending out of state. So we can't afford to lose this program. We've sent kids as far away as Florida who have some of these same kinds of behaviors. And so in fact, we don't have sufficient resources in state, so we do not want to risk losing this program. And while this is a bit unusual, we are supported if you are able to find some one-time dollars to support the purchase of this property to sustain this program. And again, Rep. Emmons and her committee is aware of this.
Great. We did hear about it. We heard about it in our public hearing. Representative Shine and Representative Harrison.
So thanks for mentioning that we already are sending people out of state. Do you have a sense of what the cost is when we send people out of state? It just seems to be intuitively it would be a lot more expensive to send somebody to Florida than to take care of them here in Vermont?
I can tell you that line item is pretty high in the Department for Children and Families. I can't tell you what the exact, cost per participant is. It varies from program to program that they send them out of state, but we certainly can seek to provide additional information about that.
Okay, thank you.
So, the notes here say they would save 150,000 annually in rent payments. If you took a portion of that, wouldn't they just mortgage it?
To us.
Whoever, it just seems to me intuitive. It's been a little while since I figured out the cost of a mortgage, but if you borrowed $1 million over 20 years, it would not cost you 150,000 a year. It would probably maybe cost you half of that or something.
We're bringing forth the request, and like I said, I did ask the question about them borrowing. They indicated that they don't have the ability to take on additional debt at this time. That was the response that we got back, Representative Harrison.
We had a brief conversation about it too. We were thinking people did some investigating, kind of off the cuff to find out like this is paid through Child Family Services. So we have a dog in this race, so to speak. But I got that wrong.
I know. I think it's a pony or something. Yeah.
Right, church. Wrong.
It's okay. I do that all the time. And I honestly, I just wanted to get it on the record because they have approached many different committees on this.
I kind of pointed
So, they've been sent all around the building, and I said, I'll make sure that it lands, and then it'll be up to you folks to decide whether it's funded. But it has landed.
We will continue to have the conversation with the institutions and corrections to see how that goes, right? Yep, go ahead, sir.
Can I ask a general question?
Oh, but can I just, the reason that it's here as opposed to in the capital budget is because there is a April 23rd deadline. Is that in here? Okay.
Well,
We're aware of that.
Oh, okay, or April,
That's the
yeah, so capital budget.
offer deadline.
So, Madam Chair, if I may,
You have a variety of requests over and above what was in the BAA proposed by the administration. My back of the envelope calculation is something like $23 million. If we didn't have an extra $23 million, is there any kind of priority on the request that you've made?
Well, having anticipated that question, she is so.
Boy, does she know you.
Well, I didn't know if it would be Representative Harrison's per se, but I anticipated that someone on the committee might ask that question. We really feel in our committee that it's our job to bring the needs of Vermonters forward that we feel meet the priorities. And that's what we've done. So, and whether or not we can fund all of those will be, up to this committee to decide. So these needs that we have outlined here meet the priority list of things that we think that Vermonters need right now in this moment in time. And as you can see, most of them are around the homeless population. That was the big.
No, and I'm not suggesting any of them aren't.
I know, I understand, I understand.
I'm just, you can help us by saying, this is a 5-star need right now. This one may be a 4-star need or some portion of it. It's helpful because you work, live, and breathe this stuff every day. We just look at numbers.
Which is why I said it's our job to present the needs of Vermonters, and that's what I feel like we have done. If I'm not going to throw any of these requests under the bus because it's our committee's work. I think everybody would consider them a 5-star request. Whether the Park Street program should be funded should be our recommendation or somebody else's recommendation. I just wanted to get that one on the book so that you're sort of officially considering it.
So she's not gonna answer.
You're all priority.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sure they went, as you indicated, there are, you set some limits too. Representative Dolan and Representative Bloomley.
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. I was very much looking forward to hearing from you, so I appreciate that. A follow-up with Representative Harrison's question. Taking some of the sections I'm overseeing, there are some line items in here that you didn't specify or identify as with any comments. Are you still suggesting that the particular line items that you have identified are a higher priority than the ones you did not speak to?
No, we just didn't. We followed the instructions mostly that said, if you agree with something, you don't necessarily need to say it. You don't need to include it in your memo. So if there are items that weren't specifically called out, that just meant that we agreed with them and you didn't need any further information. We didn't feel like we needed to provide any further information, that what the administration had already provided was sufficient. The ones that we agreed with in terms of the governor's BAA and we included in the memo, we felt like you might need additional background material in order to understand that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Representative Bloomley.
I'm just struck by, this is a comment. I really appreciate the work that your committee did. It's a hard budget to have to react to. And I think, and what it reflects to me, the fact that $12,810 was identified by a committee member as being critical to then ensuring the continuity of a program, that's great. That's I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this, as far as I can see it, but the way that you described it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just going to say the same. I really deep appreciation for the committee who met with me repeatedly. Just the diligence they did in trying to understand the numbers behind some of the requests, particularly with respect to the support for families who are risk of losing housing. I just really appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Going back to your question about priorities, which you didn't answer.
I did answer. Right. I said they were all priorities.
The hard part is, in some ways, there really are real differences in these proposals. Some of them are kind of fundamentally humanitarian, like $13 million for keeping people out of the tents, for 2 or 3 months. And others of them are we going to cripple our infrastructure if we let something go? And putting a priority on that is almost a moral issue, rather than, it's hard to find a systemic priority basis for that. It's just, my first reaction is all of it, but.
I would say human services is an incredibly tough
Yeah.
committee emotionally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really.
That's okay. You're welcome. And certainly my committee or I are available for any additional questions or clarifications that you might have as you deliberate. We are happy to be of service and look forward to our work on the 24 budget.
Thank your whole committee. I know this was so much work and we really appreciate all the work that you all have done.
I will.
So.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Our goal, Madam Chair, is to tie up the BAA by Friday, straw vote. We'll do the final vote on Monday. We will need your wisdom on the floor if we get a lot of digging under the hood.
Happy to be of service in any way I can, including, with a shovel to dig you out. I'm just kidding.
Dig us out or dig us in?
No, I don't want to do that. No.
Did I get everything?
I appreciate it. Everybody else set?
I believe we were about 15 minutes over, which I thought we were going to be. So thank you.
Okay.
Break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have Sarah for a bit.